Hold on, let me just cut this off really quick. What is on your screen here is the, we'll just scroll back up to the top here for the city. This is the City of Bremerton Comprehensive Plan. I'm just taking that off here, and I'm just going to take myself off the screen.
Just tell me when you see my little citation.
Yep, go ahead. You're there.
Okay. This is a state statute, and I've cited it, spelled it out, put it in briefs innumerable times. It's corny, but it's absolutely essential. This is a guardrail that tells government officials, including our planning commissioners, including the DCD agency, including the mayor, including our council members, that they cannot knowingly give us a false report, and they cannot knowingly mislead us. That mislead is important because it doesn't have to be an outright lie. If they omit law, if they omit fact that is crucial, that is material to our understanding of a hearing or a presentation in front of us, especially when that's calculated to basically make us be led by the nose, that's a crime. It's a gross misdemeanor. That may not sound like it's serious, but what that means is you've committed a crime by misleading us, and that can make you get thrown out of office. If I really wanted to insist on this, I can go to the county prosecutor and say, hey, they keep telling us that they're working on getting sanitation for the homeless, that they're working on it, and they keep blaming the mayor and pointing the finger that the mayor doesn't want to do anything, but we've allocated money to the mayor, and he just won't do it. Gosh darn it, that mayor, he's so evil, but poor homeless people, we really want this for you. And guess what? By omitting the fact that they have city charter powers as legislators to create law, to mandate the creation and funding of sanitation for the homeless, when they do that, when they calculatingly omit that they have powers based on the city charter, that's an omission. That is misleading the public. They misled me. I at one time thought that as dysfunctional as they might be, that if they could, they would do their job and get sanitation for the homeless, 24/7 sanitation. But then I read the city charter. And then I found out that, in fact, they have vetoed the mayor with their city charter powers. They didn't like what the mayor was doing, and they came up with law, and they basically rammed this law down the throat of the mayor because they can. They have the power.
Yeah.
They have the power to make law as long as they have a 5-2 vote, right? So that was part of the reason why we got gagged. We pissed them off because we said, hey guys, if you don't follow this law and avoid misleading us when you know that you have the power to do something, but you have this de facto policy of inaction, of not helping the homeless on sanitation, guess what law you're violating? It's this. And this law says, every public officer who shall knowingly make any false or misleading statement in any official report or statement, yada, yada, shall be guilty of a gross misdemeanor. So what this tells us is that the truth is still important. The truth still matters. So even if they're lay people, even if they're intellectually lazy, even if they have a hard day, even if they feel that they really deserve to get paid better, at some point, they must be careful about how they speak to us. They have to say, hey, Kylie Fennell, where does the law really stand on this or that or the other?
Now, who is Kylie Fennell?
Kylie Fennell is the top city official, the top city attorney of
Okay.
Bremerton. Kylie Fennell is both a city attorney, and that's a specific role. Washington statute says every city must have a city attorney. But Kylie Fennell isn't free to do or say whatever she wants. She is subject to the rules of professional ethics. And those rules says you have a duty of candor. You cannot allow someone, another attorney, to lie or mislead when you have supervisory control over them, or when you yourself are saying what the law is. So unfortunately, Kylie Fennell is often mute when misrepresentations of law are going on.
So let me just, I'm reading this here, and it says the code that I typed in, which is that code, which is the Washington state law on false reports made by public officers. So is Kylie Fennell and the other attorney, are they considered public officers?
Yes.
Okay, so under the statute, any public officer who knowingly makes a false or misleading statement in an official report is guilty of a gross misdemeanor, right? So in that sense, the silence, knowing that it's wrong, is still wrong, right? Because you know that it's wrong and you need to say something, but you are knowingly being silent, allowing the misinformation to exist and circulate out there.
Yes. And let me add something. A city attorney will wear different hats depending on what they're doing at a particular moment in their city service. One of the hats is admittedly risk management. Sometimes something really sensitive is going on. A council member or an issue may have come up where Kylie Finno, as an attorney, has the power to make a conversation confidential. She doesn't necessarily have to tell us conversations between an attorney and the client which are confidential. So in that case, she might be wearing the risk management hat, and confidentiality would be okay. But this is when she cannot keep it quiet. When they are having hearings to the public, right? To us, out in the open, that's not a place for confidentiality because it is open. That is where I go and you go and Kimmy and everyone else goes to the city council or the planning commission. We go there because it's a public forum, and the presentations we will hear from the attorneys, from planning commissioners, from DCD, the people like Garrett Jackson, when we are there listening to them, and Kylie Finno is there, she should not be tolerating known misrepresentations of law. If she knows that this is an endemic problem, which by now she does, because we've been talking about it for 2.5 years,
right?
She needs to take these people aside and say, hey, you cannot misrepresent these legal positions to the public. And I've been actually talking this thing every once in a while, I'll repeat it. This isn't arcane. This is fundamental. This is actually a First Amendment issue. The public not only has the right to speak, we have the right to sit there in the public forum and receive information from government. We're not there to be misled. We are there because these are formal processes, and we see that the city has an attorney. So we should be able to go there and be assured by the formality of the hearing and by the attorney being there, or even being in city government, to know we're not going to be deceived, led by the nose, disinformed.
And shout out to Don Michelle. She typed in omission, and omission is a type of lie, right?
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, when you go and look at the ethical opinions of the disciplinary body that penalizes attorneys for doing shady business, they will routinely talk about how omissions can have the effect of making a statement into a lie. So you can actually give a statement that on its face it sounds kosher, but because a crucial detail or fact has been omitted, it becomes a lie.
Right.
Absolutely. So thanks for Don Michelle. And that is actually written into the rules of professional conduct.
So let me jump in there because Dawn Michelle just put a really great question there. She says, what about the mayor's statement that was read at the special commissioners meeting on Monday about the ARPA funds? It was 100% false.
I can tell you that what the mayor's letter, I think it's the July 10 letter, and then we have this joint letter from Jane Rebolowski and Denise Fry. They are respectively the president and vice president of city council. And we see the same tactic being taken by DC Director Andrew Spencer. And we have seen Denise Fry also utter this deception. What all their comments have in common is they zero in on the location. They don't want the shelter at that location. And I think I know why. So they take a route of slightly different verbiage, but what the mayor specifically is talking about is he is saying that ARPA funding is not tied to the location. He takes a circuitous route. He says the ARPA funding is not tied to the BHA shelter project at that location. So it all comes down to that one parcel. So he is, again, that is a misleading statement. He doesn't need to be a rocket scientist. He has access to Kylie Fennell. He has access to the U.S. Treasury rules. Mm-hmm. No one, in all this time, no one has given a factual or legal basis for why that location is wrong for the shelter.
And we requested it.
Yeah.
We requested it.
Absolutely.
Yep.
So what you see instead of anything that they have offered us to show that location is wrong, we have now counting 4 different separate statutes that not only say it is okay, they require a city to accept these kinds of homeless measures. They must be accepted in any area, any zone that has a dwelling, that allows dwellings. That is precisely where these projects should go. The obstruction that we're seeing is in complete bad faith, and it's actually illegal. So
yeah, that letter they wrote to the universe, I guess they put it on the main page of their council. I think they removed it now and put it on their own because there was some argument there. But the letter they sent actually shows that the money from ARPA, the site was not, she kept saying, we didn't agree with the site, which is kind of works against them because it proves that when you obligate that money to an entity that's not like a municipal source, then that gives them the right by law to pick whatever site they want. Like they didn't say which site it was, which would be, they would have more weight behind them. Yeah. But the whole letter is just a sham, and it's just to like freak people out. And it actually shot him in the foot again. I can't believe it. What I think, you guys, is that people are so far removed from what's going on around them that they've been able to get away with this for so long that they're even quite dumb, and they're doing things that are so obvious. Even people like a nurse and an ex-paralegal in the community can figure out, right? So it's just it's so amazing to see. So this is why I'm glad we're having these conversations. We need to keep this going, in my opinion.
It is actually really, really disheartening. It's depressing. There's so much I could say. I always have to try to gather myself because this alarms me at a cellular level.
Well, and the thing about this, Jose, is you guys are educating us on this. But if we're sitting here and we're watching city council and the city attorney is silent, as a layperson, we're thinking everything is fine. Yeah. Everything seems in order here. We may not agree with the fact that, hey, we want a shelter, but it sounds like everything sounds legal. Yeah, well, it just can't be done. It's unfortunate. And then now you're telling us, oh, no, this is wrong. But the city attorney's like, oh, no, I'm silent, or it can't be done. Yeah. Oh, but it is constitutional to take away your right to speak. And it's like,
let me tell you something. I joke about this moment to Robin. I went to the Parks Commission at one point in person. I think I've been there twice now. But the first time I went there to give a public comment. And so I sat. The doors were locked. I was sitting on the steps. And I lost my glasses, probably at council a while back. So I'm walking around half blind. So I'm sitting on the steps, half blind. And I'm also kind of feeling queasy because I walked. And my fat butt was challenged by the walk to the Parks Commission. So I'm sitting on the steps, and someone dressed in dark clothing, rather formal, came up the steps and had a quick question about whether the doors were locked. And without thinking, I gave them a greeting. And for some reason, because I'm a Debbie Downer often, I think I sounded cheerful, and I said, hi, or good morning, or whatever time of day it was. And Kylie Fennell, the poor lady, greeted me back also cheerfully, but she recognized me because she actually has vision. And she said, hi, Mr. Camacho. And then I realized, oh, crap, I think that's Kylie Fennell, the city attorney whom I have had occasion to condemn for sitting on the side while law is misrepresenting. So I felt bad.
It's part of her job, though.
I know, but here's the thing, is that we are human. So having greeted Kylie Fennell as a human and feeling momentarily guilty, um, the reason why I'm saying this is because I am fully aware that everyone in city government is human, and even the developers are human, and we are all human. But we have a duty. We have a duty to uphold these things that if we don't uphold, we are no longer who we say we are, right? We are no longer a democracy. And although that this democracy is on extremely shaky ground,
Mm-hmm.
we can at least still say that we are trying, right? And this is what the law says, is that we exchange these ideas and we are trying. So when Kylie Fennell showed up and I reacted to her as a human, but then when I see her at council being mute or during the pause, absolutely misrepresenting this fundamental law of free speech. What I am saying is, as a Puerto Rican, where I grew up thinking I was nothing, I was talking to Kimmy about Jesse Jackson's moment where, as a kid, he came up with this thing, I am somebody. I told Kimmy, I heard that and I thought, well, of course we're somebody. But then I thought, why is he saying that? Am I not somebody? And then I thought, in a moment of honesty, I realized, no, I don't feel like I am somebody. So he actually triggered this internal soliloquy where I am piercing my view of myself and I realize, no, I don't think I am somebody. Who am I? Right? And in fact, that's how I grew up, that I wasn't anyone. You know, I have memories of being hungry. I have memories of being made fun of wearing clothing with holes in them and patches. And, you know, so that moment of I am somebody, I carried it into my first law job. I applied to be a gopher and they were nice enough to let me read law. And eventually I realized I have an aptitude for this. I'm literate, I'm motivated. So they, in time, let me do legal briefs. And I typically won the arguments I was involved. And you know why I won? Because I had become aware that I was somebody in that job. And the reason why I became aware that I was somebody is because in that job, we got to help people who were powerless. Some of them were destroyed, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the American ideal is that for every wrong, there is a remedy. Why? Because we believe in fairness. We believe that there are ideals and that everyone matters. And that if you have a beef, if you feel you've been injured by the government or by a corporation or by another person, that you have redress. That due process gives you certain rights to help yourself, to help your fellow man. So in that position as a paralegal for these guys, I realized, holy cow, I come to work in a t-shirt and gym shoes, and they're letting me research the law, and we just saved this family from a lifetime of debt. And one of my first assignments that was kind of traumatizing because I worked for 3 days straight was we had a poor brain injured girl who fell into the water because of the lack of a cable to keep her from falling off a pier. And so I worked for 3 days straight. And by the end of this task, which we won the argument enough to at least get her a settlement. By the end of this task, I wrote a brief out of I pulled it out of my butt. Because I stopped at nothing. I was angry as I wrote this brief, right? And by the end of it, I was basically in tears. And I've had these moments. And that is because I'm nothing, dude. Like, I'm just a regular guy. I'm living in this apartment in Uptown, and I don't know about music. At that time, I was even politically very apathetic. I just wanted to take care of my family, and I wanted to do good. So when you get this law, you are suddenly you're like Arnold Schwarzenegger suddenly, because you are armed, not with weapons, not with anything. You are armed with the voices of generations before you that got together using their free speech, deciding what policies should matter and what policies we could put aside And this goes back hundreds of years. It goes back to England. Some of it even goes back to Roman times, right? So what you are doing when you use law is you are resting on the foundation where humanity matters, where fairness matters, where rationality matters. That is our tradition. So the attorney is magic to me. Any attorney has such a unique position in society. Basically, they get a lot of credit for being credible, right?
Yeah.
So when you have a Kylie Fennell in a town that's dominated by developers like Soundwest Group, if we don't have in the city attorney that is the guardrail between self-interest and greed and running amok, trying to refashion reality, refashion civics, in the framework of developers making money. If we don't have a counter to that in the law, we're screwed. So what we have seen at the Planning Commission and at various hearings, I mean, we've like literally caught the city attorneys like lying, like live in hearings and questioned them during the hearings, and they become flustered and still lie, right? So what I'm saying is that is not an easy thing for me to say, but it is the essence of my job. When an attorney hires me or pays me, what they want from me is to stick to the objective truth, to stick to the objective law. And if there's a gray area, then to let them know, hey, this is a gray area. We're going to have to be careful treading ground here. The first job of any lawyer is to assess objectively where the law stands, right? They may actually be wired to kind of push it over this way or push it over that way. But your first job is you have to try to assess it objectively. Where does it stand on any given issue? Given a certain set of facts, where does the law stand? That's the city attorney's job. Now, when you have planners or commissioners or council members who are not attorneys, you cannot let them spout off and go on these weird tangents where they are worshiping developers and crushing the homeless. And they're trying to say that this is okay. It is okay for us to get CDBG funding to the fat cat developers intended for the low income. That's perfectly fine. But hey, it's okay to give nothing to the homeless, not even a porta potty, when it comes time to okay a BHA shelter, where it belongs. It's okay not to give it to the homeless because, and then they come up with 12 different reasons. And they organize a sabotage campaign filled with disgruntled neighborhood residents who have themselves been misled on the law, right?
Yeah, definitely.
They've been encouraged to be misled and to give arguments that legally don't work.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing is a mass tragedy in one locality. I was a paralegal, like in 9-to-5 world for a long, long time. And then afterward, I did freelance for a while. I've never seen anything like it. Now, I hope to God that this does not exist elsewhere. But Bremerton is a rather, it's the biggest city in Kitsap. So it has, what happens here can translate elsewhere. We actually have a duty. What I would like to say is, I told Kimmy, sometimes I'm speaking to a young person, and I want to beg them, become a lawyer. I'll ask them, are you interested in becoming a lawyer?
Well, let me stop you there because that's a perfect segue, and I want to jump in and transition a little bit. But we've got a question in the chat, which is perfect here. What would be the best way to be in solidarity from afar and echo the issues of the local governmental neglect that's happening in Bremerton? All this information has been very informative. Thank you.
Boy.
I think that learning about like what's going on and being able to be confident in presenting that in a way where even if it's just a letter to the city council, just starting to wake up and open your eyes to see what's going on, because the more of us that are like that, the less we can be fooled. The less that people like me and Jose are called terrorists or conspiratorial weirdos.
Terrorists, wow.
Yeah, it's all, you name it, we've been called it. So, but we don't need to bemoan that. It's just, it is what it is. So the more of us that open up, see the reality, and advocate for ourselves instead of blindly trusting people in positions, it's just not what it really seems to be. Like, we look at the planning commission, and I used to think differently. Like they were chosen for their expertise or this or that. And then you start realizing they're not. They're like volunteers, and often it's a political advantage to be like named as like being on a committee or something. And then we see the public, it's not private, it's public if you request it, public records showing that the information they're providing is omitting an incredible amount of information. But through the way the system works, they're supposed to be able to trust those people. So people need to learn how to like just look around with their own eyes and take responsibility for that. Because I know that it really sucks to like work all day and then have to try to keep up on issues. But like I said before, it'll get to a